A woman giving birth at a bus terminal. Ex-homeless Redditors, what was the scariest thing that you ever saw on the streets? Would you look at that, my favorite viewer is back for another story time, oh boy. It's very hard to contain my excitement. Since you're here, can you like the video and subscribe? If you do, I'll make sure to get a famous TikTok thought to blow you. Thanks bro, let's start the stories. I was just sleeping around where other guys in my city sleep, then just saw some teens stabbing one of the homeless guys multiple times, ran away from there, never turned back. People who had been homeless way longer than me. Trust me. There is nothing scarier on the streets than the meth couple who this has been their day in and day out for thousands of days. Biggest thing, 5'3" 115 pounds, was how often people try to abduct you. That and how often people try to serve you tampered food. The teenagers trying to get clout by pranking you is another one. Snow. I'm a big scary dude, so I never had trouble with people picking on me or whatever, in that sense the streets were safe to me, but seeing snow for the first time that year just made me cry and panic. It was too early for snow, I wasn't ready for that type of cold, and was hoping to be on my feet again before the winter came. Beautiful things like snow just ducked me up in so many ways. Lots of stabbings and rapes. I was stalked by a gang one night on my way home from work. I still have no idea how I wasn't raped or mugged. Once I woke up suddenly to a not homeless man holding a huge knife staring at me inside the abandoned building's basement I was sleeping in. Once he noticed I was awake he asked if I was Russian. I said no, and he said he was looking for a different girl, gave me $20 and left. There is a drainage ditch in my area that the local homeless people tend to bed down in. A few years ago, when I found myself destitute, I spent one night down there. That night I witnessed a Molotov get thrown into another dude's spot, which led to a huge fire that ran rampant through the area. Yeah, I bought a tent the next day and started camping in the local mountains. Cold weather. I thought I was going to die one night. I was so cold. I remember waking up thinking you need to move or you are going to die. I ended up sleeping in buses, burning sterno. It's like jellied rubbing alcohol that burns for a good while. I would try to constantly be walking cause if I stopped, I'd probably fall asleep and die. I also sometimes rested under a bridge from time to time. One time I fell asleep under the bridge and I woke up finally feeling warm and cozy and thought it was nice to finally be able to rest. Then I realized that it's way too cold for this and I can't move without that frozen fingers pain everywhere. Struggled real hard to get my sterno out and could barely bend my fingers enough to light it. Like my hands were nearly useless. I'm really glad I woke up. I was staying in a homeless shelter that had a men's side and a woman's side. Most of the men were convicted sex offenders. In the 8 months I spent in that hell on earth, I was friends with 3 women who were raped by some of these men. The truly scary thing? The women were actively discouraged from telling anyone what had happened, especially the police. If they filed a report with the police, they were permanently barred from the shelter. That place, one of the most celebrated in my state, regularly has the mayor and governor drop by, is the most evil place on earth. Ada. The Pine Street Inn, Boston, Ma. It just didn't occur to me to say where, cause I never expected many people to see this. Also Ada. The rapes didn't take place inside the shelters. The men stayed in one building, the women in another. The rapes took place outside, after dark, in areas that didn't have good CCTV coverage. Waking up to a shotgun being pointed directly at my head. I wasn't truly homeless but had no money or bank card and was trying to get back to my parents following nearly being strangled to death by my ex. The actual fight happened whilst we were out, so I had no spare, no clothes, I'd left my wallet in his and only had a dying phone on me. I tried getting money for a train, but only really managed enough for a bus fare to the next town and decided to try hitchhiking. Late into the night I gave up and managed to sneak into a barn where I was able to get comfortable enough to sleep. Turns out I didn't close the door enough, and the farmer found me in the morning after taking his gun to investigate. He woke me up, I think he coughed loudly, with the gun painted at me, and I nearly shat myself. It asked me what I thought I was doing in his barn and quizzed me on how I got in. He asked to see my arms before he lowered the gun, and he started chatting. He was quite nice though, and after talking to him for a while, he took me back to his house and fed me and let me have a shower. I had been homeless for a couple weeks now and had made friends with this couple. They seemed pretty chill, but had a bit of a drinking problem. Anyway, one night I was sleeping, could hear some commotion going on, couldn't make out who it was or what was going on until my buddy came and sat on my sleeping bag. Blood was pumping out of his neck, like full on every time his heart beat it would splurt out, not under huge pressure, but it was pretty bad. I asked him what happened, and he said he thought his missus had cut his throat with a Stanley blade. He was so drunk he was not aware of how bad his injury was and insisted I did not call an ambulance. So I called the police and they called the ambulance. I see the dude a couple days later, still homeless, scar on his neck. He's ever so grateful the nurse had told him how lucky he was. He was literally a couple millimeters away from dying that night. Edit. I'm no longer homeless. This all happened about 6 years ago now. I no longer speak to him. This is another long story. She was arrested but not charged. Last year she committed suicide, so she's no longer with us. I was homeless back when I was 19. After a few weeks of sleeping rough, I was approached one evening by a man dressed as a priest. At this point I had no idea if he was a priest or someone out to deceive me. Being wary of the priest outfit, I straight away told him I have no interest in talking about God. What he said next has stuck with me ever since. I am not here to talk about God, I'm here to make sure you are safe. We talked for quite a while until it was dark, and that's when he offered me a bed for the night. Alarm bells were going off in my head, but he had seemed genuine, so I went with him. He drove me to a house in the suburbs and asked me to wait in his car whilst he spoke to someone. A few minutes later he returned with another man who offered to let me sleep in his garage for the night. Everything inside me was saying this is a bad idea, but I accepted as I had nothing left to lose. The garage was pretty standard, tools, workbench etc., except in the corner there was a box spring and some blankets. There was a connecting door to the main house that the man told me he would have to keep locked during the night. He apologized, but said he had kids in the house and couldn't take the risk. The priest asked if he could come by in the morning and speak to me, then went into the house of the man. I don't think I slept at all that night. I was terrified. I had no reason to be afraid of either man as they had been nothing but nice to me. However, after living on the streets for a while you come to learn that nothing comes for free and you shouldn't trust anyone. The morning rolled around and the most amazing thing happened. The man knocked on his own garage door to ask me if he could come in. This might not sound amazing, but when you've been living rough with zero privacy, someone asking if they can enter your space, which is actually his space, gives you a sense of being human again. Someone actually respects you enough to ask your permission. I spoke with both him and the priest every day for the 7 weeks I slept in his garage. Between them they managed to get me into a subsidized efficiency apartment, think studio apartment, but a lot smaller, got me a job and helped me get my life back on track. That was over 20 years ago, and I will also be indebted to both of them. I still send Christmas cards to the man whose garage was my home and visited him 2 years ago for Thanksgiving. Sadly, the priest passed away a few years back, but I guarantee that if there is a heaven, he got fast-tracked in. Let's see. FUNNY-ish guy at the shelter I stayed at got stabbed in the ribs by another guy. The guy who stabbed him just walked inside and attempted to go to sleep, while the guy who's stabbed is sitting on a bench, literally spurting blood out of his side, and he lights a cigarette. When the staff called 911 and tried to help him, he was pushing them off saying he was fine. Horrible. There was a gas station down the street. A guy paid for gas, took the hose and doused himself in gasoline. I was smoking outside, and I remember him walking by outside the yard area with a lighter in his hand, arm fully extended out. He was very mentally ill, so I didn't think anything of it. I couldn't smell gas or anything like that. I continue to smoke, light another one up. About 10 minutes later I'm inside bullcrapping at the front desk, and a dude runs in the front door and shouts, "Give me wet towels." A guy's set himself on fire across the street. Homeless shelters aren't in good areas, so I just walked out casually thinking some idiot at the apartments across the street had set a rug on fire and the dude who ran in was just being a dumbass. I walk out the front door and sure enough, on one of the stairwells there's flames. My thought process was basically, yep, some dumb dicks lit a Ruo duck. The rug sat up. Me and 3 other guys ended up being the ones to put him out. He wouldn't though. I don't know if the gas had to burn off first, but probably. I don't really remember putting him out, I just remember after. I don't remember a smell or anything. The morbid thing I do remember is he was out and he just kept shouting, my balls are on fire. Put out my balls. He died 3 days later. I was told it wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. The shelter ended up sending me to therapy, and the woman was the best therapist I'd ever had. I still get weird sometimes and can't really watch people on fire in movies anymore. Edit. This happened around 2011 in Kentucky, so it's a while back now. I've been slowly putting my life together again since then. The last time I was homeless was in 2014. I'm still struggling financially, especially now, but I'm studying computer programming in my spare time, so I can hopefully get where I want to be in life. Thanks for watching. What did you think of the story time? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any more story times.